What is up, guys? Welcome back to OverTakes. This is Misfit, and today we're going to be doing our Week 2 preview. We're going to hit the top matches of the week, talk about all the news and things from since we last talked. There's been a couple things that happened, and we're going to talk about that first before we dive into the week. And then, of course, we're going to do the weekly rundown where I pick all of the matches and do them in a rapid-fire format. But before we dive in, I'd like to thank everybody for joining me. All of you guys that have subscribed and been around, thank you very much. If you're new, just joining the program, checking us out, thanks a lot for stopping by. I do Overwatch League content anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, depending on what's going on. And, with the tournament format, it's going to change up a little bit because I'll talk about more of how I'm going to work that towards the end of the program, just because of the way the format goes. You're going to have 2 weeks of regular stuff, 3 weeks essentially, but the matches go Thursday to Saturday, and then you start the prelims to get ready to go whoever goes to Hawaii, or however you want to phrase that. But yeah, so thanks a lot for stopping by. Please hit a like, hit a subscribe, and hit the alert bell. It'll let you know when I got content coming out. So, all right, guys, let's hit the news first. Okay, so you guys are all around. You knew what happened this week. Jeff Kaplan has stepped down from his position on Overwatch and has left Blizzard as a company where he was VP. So I think this is a big deal. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because it's really important to the future of the game and where it's going. Some of the behind the scenes that we don't see, we're going to all be speculating on why and what and all this kind of stuff as to why Jeff left. He was the voice of Overwatch. He was the face of Overwatch. You could call Tracer that. You could call whatever character you want to place there. But Jeff was the guy. How many times did we say, "Hi guys, this is Jeff from the Overwatch team"? Since the game came out, he was the face. He was the voice. And he was the drive behind making this a fantastic game. I mean, he's been at Blizzard for eons. You know, he did doing things on building World of Warcraft. Then he did the Titan project that turned into Overwatch. I mean, 2 of their biggest titles he was a major part of as to what we look at Blizzard today. I mean, 2 of the, I guess at this point, 4 titles, 5 if you count Heroes of the Storm, or 6 if you count StarCraft, which, they're all great games and playable games, but Heroes of the Storm was left out to dry, and StarCraft has an allegiance of people. Right now, it's Hearthstone, WoW, and Overwatch, and Diablo. 2 of the 4 he had his hands in creating them in a spectacular fashion. I think this guy is going to be missed by Blizzard. I don't know how to put it into words other than I was kind of shocked and, I guess saddened in a way, because you can see the writing on the wall. You can make it, like I said before, you can make it out to be whatever you want to make it out to be. But it seems like there was a difference in philosophy and opinion for him not to just leave Overwatch, but to leave the entirety of Blizzard itself is a big thing. Everybody wants new challenges. In life, we all do that. We all want something new. We want something different. People have left this game to play other games. In life careers, I was a chef for a long time. I have moved back into part of a field that I enjoy, which is working with beer and wine, selling that in a grocery store where I can talk to people and do things. And it's something that I like to do, and I can focus more on other things that I'm passionate about, which is this show right here and video games in general. His legacy is not going to go away. We see all the teams that they've Jeffed their names. This guy has been a big part of this whole thing, Overwatch. It saddens me that he's gone. He was so passionate about it, and it was his child, and he treated it that way. And he was, we call him Papa Jeff for a reason. He was the cool, good dad. He always was out in front, and just the things he said and did were, they were cool. I like the guy a lot. I hope he stays on this. And, there are a lot of speculation, as we said. But, I mean, I know that Mike Morhaime has a new game company. If you also look on the page of the game company, they're looking for a game director. Small, passionate group of people making games. It's somewhere that you could see Jeff going. I don't know if he's going to go in that direction. If he's going to take some time off, what he's going to do. But I really hope he doesn't abandon the video game industry, because he was and is a fantastic creative force. And I wish him all the best. And, if he happens to tune into this, I just want to say thanks. Thanks for all you did in this game. It changed my perception of games. I fell in love with the game after I started playing it. The characters, the immersion of the backstories, just the game itself was fantastic. And a lot of you guys feel similarly to me. And that even goes for WoW. A lot of you guys are into WoW. I mean, I never got into WoW. It wasn't my thing at that point. But the dude created worlds that were insanely cool, relatable with the characters. There were villains, there were heroes, but they all had similarities to all of us. And he played a big part of that. So I just want to say thanks. And hopefully we get to see you in another venture somewhere soon, doing the same thing. Now, let's move on to why you guys are here, other than to hear me wax poetically about Jeff Kaplan. So let's talk about Overwatch League Week 2. Week 1 was exciting. It was fun. It was great. We had a lot of great matches. A lot of big storylines came out of that. And so now we're moving on. We're getting to see some teams we haven't seen yet, which is always interesting in the beginning of the year. You form opinions like, oh, Houston's great. Florida's great. Some people are saying Shanghai's still good, even though they lost one game. San Francisco's still San Francisco, but there's a lot of teams we haven't seen yet. A lot of good teams we haven't seen yet. A lot of teams that we have questions about we haven't seen yet. And we get to see all of them this week. Okay, so let's run down the schedule really quick like we did last week. All right, so let's run down the schedule. Here we go. Starting Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have Paris making their season debut, taking on the Vancouver Titans, followed by the LA Gladiators taking on the London Spitfire, making their season debut. Then we move to the East on Saturday, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have Chengdu taking on the New York Excelsior, followed by the Philadelphia Fusion taking on the Hangzhou Spark, and then finishing up in the East for Saturday with Chengdu taking on New York. Then back to the West, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have the Houston Outlaws taking on the Paris Eternal, followed by the Boston Uprising taking on the Los Angeles Gladiators, and then finishing out with the Washington Justice taking on the Dallas Fuel. Moving to Sunday, 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Hangzhou Spark taking on the New York Excelsior, the Chengdu Hunters taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. Then the weekend ends for the East with the Hangzhou Spark taking on the New York Excelsior. Now to the West, we have the Houston Outlaws taking on the London Spitfire, the Boston Uprising taking on the Dallas Fuel, and the Vancouver Titans. Okay, a little StarCraft there. Tychus? The Vancouver Tychus? The Vancouver Titans taking on the Washington Justice to round off the weekend. Okay, so let's dive into some matches for this week, shall we? Okay, so I got 3 that I highlighted that I think are going to be big. There's going to be other ones that are going to be fantastic matches as well. So we're going to talk about Boston LA Gladiators, Washington Dallas, and one that should be an absolute banger of a match in the East. The one I highlighted before, this Washington Dallas should be really good too. Chengdu taking on Philly. And like I said, there's some other matches you could talk about too if you really wanted to. Both New York matches seem interesting. With Chengdu and with Hangzhou, that's a lot of questions in that Hangzhou, New York, as to where these teams possibly lie with preseason scrimbucks, not scrimbucks, what people think of these teams. I think New York's going to have an interesting weekend. Boston as well. They have the Gladiators, which we're going to talk about in 2 seconds, in Dallas. We're going to get some questions answered about them. And we're going to see, a lot of Houston potentially has an easy weekend, but if your Houston narrative is from the past, they should lose both of these games and drop in the pack. But I don't think that's going to happen, but that's beside the point. All right, so let's jump in first. Let's talk about Boston and the Gladiators. Okay, Gladiators had a rough weekend last weekend. No other way to put it. They just did not look good. They did not hang with either one of the teams that they played. There was a lot of questions going in there. Why was Birdring out most of the time? You're playing around with supports, with taking Moth out. His Brig must not be as good. Things like that. Putting Mirror in on Zarya instead of Space. I don't know. There's a lot of... The DPA question comes up a lot. I think he's a good coach, but there are a lot of questions I have sometimes with this guy. You got a roster like this, man, you should not be going 0-2. Yeah, there's some synergistic issues you got to get over. You played the Shock. The Shock are the Shock, but they're beatable, as Houston proved. And Dallas was down their DPS star hit scan guy, and they got clocked in both games. There's some questions I have, and I've been saying a lot of things about them with Space, right? So I've been questioning Space. Is he as good as other guys? But also, I am going to question doesn't he have a good enough Zarya to be in there instead of Mirror? Fucking with tank lines. Guys, when has it ever worked? The only team that ever pulls it off is San Francisco. Occasionally when you have the ball specialist guy. When you're flipping tanks in and out all the time, there's no synergy. It just doesn't work. I don't know what San Francisco does. I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have. Let's just leave it at that. Just leave Space and Muse to get some synergy going. I think we saw a little bit of it. They have to improve. Now, Dallas, they had a kind of a big blow, I guess you could say, with Soon leaving. I don't know if he wanted to leave to play Valorant. He was up in the air and he signed with them anyway. That's beside the point. He's gone. But right now, I like the look of this team. I want to see what they can do. There's some guys on this team that have a lot to prove, and it's a big challenge. But as we saw last week, the Gladiators are beatable. And if you go in past history, Boston fucking owns them. Even when Boston was 10 times worse than this. Their roster looks upgraded. Upgraded to the point where they're going to be competitive to surprising some teams. I mean, they have, right now, Myeongbong is phenomenal. But Punk is decent enough. I like where their DPS is going with Valentine and IM37. I think he's going to be good. I think he didn't get a chance. He's one, and Colorhex is decent enough. I think IM37 didn't get a chance because his lone chance in the Overwatch League was fucking Goat's Year. And people put him out to pasture after, 5 minutes of decent. I want him to get a chance, a proper chance. And, if you've got to buy into the Scrimbucks things, he looks good and all that stuff, and they look good. But I want to see some better play from, overall in this game from the Gladiators. I think, on paper, the Gladiators really should take it to Boston. But with Boston showing up, I think Boston has some good spots, some good guys. Yeah, we're probably going to see a lot more of Stan Wan. He's going to be a key factor on this team, especially on maps where we're getting a lot of Monkey and Ball and things like that Fusions is kind of okay at, but not the greatest. Fusions is your go-to guy for Rhine. Maybe. Stan Wan is pretty good. When he was in there and with Shanghai, he didn't look terrible. But the thing is when you have a team full of role stars playing behind you, you're going to look better than you possibly are. But I want to see him in there and see what he can do. But Fusions is going to be your guy for Reinhardt, especially in a rush comp. I think this is the perfect place to put him in. I'm looking forward to watching them play. As far as their tank line, I think their DPS is fine. I don't know enough about Faith, but I've also, once again, heard a lot of good things. But Myeongbong is key here. I think he's fantastic. And I've heard things about Valentine as well. So, like I said, DPS, I'm feeling they're okay. I think they can hang with the Valiant. I'm sorry. Woo. Sorry, guys. All Gladiators fans out there, I apologize for that last comment. I did not mean to demean you in such a manner. The Gladiators have to. It's imperative for them to get into this tournament. They have to win. And they have to win, not necessarily big, but they have to make a statement and say, hey, look, guys, we just had a bad week, okay? They need to come out, be aggressive, play like they did on the first map against the Shock, and just take it to Boston. I think Boston's going to hang with them. I am giving Boston a shot in this. Not to win, but to just stay close and look better than they did last year. I am going to go with the Gladiators in this 3-1. Close 3-1. Closer than if you're a Gladiators fan, I think you want it to be. But I think it's the tide turning. It's going to be a tide turning moment for the Gladiators moving forward in the season, getting a win under their belt, and just taking week 1 and throwing it in the past and just moving. There's too much talent on this team to fail. Key things for the Gladiators: Moth needs to be in there with Shu, and there needs to be a little bit more consistency on who's in and who's out. I understand they have a strategy where they're playing skewed instead of Moth on Brigida, but at a certain point, you got to have your leader in there. And I also understand that early on in the season, you want to see where guys are at and all that, and see who works good together, but there aren't a lot of games right now. It's one thing about this season, guys. You don't have as much time to test the waters out, so to speak. So when it goes live and things don't work, there's a certain point where you just got to maybe go back on what you were trying to do and just run with the best 6. Or, at worst, run with your best 4 tanks, support line, and rotate your DPS. DPS rotations I never have a problem with. There are specialists and guys that are better. Yeah, there are specialists and guys that are better. If you look at San Francisco to be your benchmark, your point of contest on anything I'm saying about rotating lines and that kind of thing, I'm just going to shoot you down and say they're the only team in the league that does it very successfully. Everybody else has struggles when they do that. Even them to a certain extent when they started throwing Violent on McCree. That didn't look as good as it did the first time we saw it, the first taste. You just got to start sticking with who's best and not rotating things around to try and figure that out, if you know where I'm going here. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on the first match of the week with the Gladiators winning 3-1. Next match we are going to talk about. Going to move into Saturday, where we have the Washington Justice taking on the Dallas Fuel. So the Justice and the Fuel. Now, this is going to be a fantastic game. I can't wait to see it. This is one of those games where it's who is right? It seems like people are saying Washington are going to be good, or Dallas are going to be good. Not both of them. It seems like this point of contention. For some reason, you can't have both of them good. I'm one of those people, and I'm not saying that Washington's going to be terrible. I just think Dallas is going to be better long term. Mostly support line stuff. Assassin and Decay are fantastic. I think the rest of their DPS are memes. Tuba and Jerry. I'm just joking around, guys, with the Washington. I just like fucking with people sometimes, but, don't take it too seriously. I really think Washington is a good team. I can't wait to see this match, actually. This is going to be probably the best match of the weekend on paper. Dallas still without a hit scan of sorts. I think Decay proved that he could play... Sparkle proved that he could play Tracer on a very, very high level and was not terrible at all. I thought he was beyond serviceable. Better than probably half the league's Tracer specialists. Where they fall into trouble is with the McCree and your quote-unquote normal hit scan players, the Ash and all that kind of stuff. The mid-range to long-range hit scans where Eggsy would have been the guy. I don't think they have anyone that fills that role at a very, very high level. I think they have a couple of guys that maybe we haven't seen but are practicing on these heroes to hopefully bridge a gap until they get this magic hit scan player that Hastro is speaking of, who's on his way. So whoever's on their way, hopefully it's Dia, I keep saying. This is where I think we can go a little bit in Washington's favor with the hit scan. I did just say that Jerry was a meme, but Jerry is a good mid-range hit scan guy playing McCree and Ash. And I think this is where Washington's going to outshine them a little bit. obviously their tank line has a lot of hype. A lot of hype. And I buy into that hype. Look, if you don't think Mag is going to be any good, then go watch him play on Runaway. Just go back on YouTube, look at some Runaway matches when Mag was on the team, and tell me that guy's not going to be good. Fury, we all know how good Fury is. Synergistically, we don't know where they're at yet. They're really good tanks, so in theory, they should be playing together really, really well. Distinct advantage for them over Dallas right now. The obvious one is Dallas' supports are better, in theory, than the Justice with Bebe and Closer. Never been a big fan of those two. I think that they're okay to above average, but, you compare them to Fielder and Jexay and I guess Repel. And see, now if they're playing a lot of Repel like they did last week, it's up in the air. Jexay Repel to me is a tick better than Closer and Bebe. And Jexay's the linchpin there. I just don't feel as though Repel is on the level of Fielder, but they have a plan. They're kind of working with it. I don't know what that plan is, but I want to see Fielder in there a little bit more. I know it's a different team, it's a different year, all that stuff, but he impressed me last year with his Ana play, and I think his Zen and his BAP and stuff are capable. I just don't understand the necessity to put in Repel instead of keeping Fielder in there. It's see my last rant on rotating tanks and supports. It just, and outside of the shock, it generally doesn't work. This is going to be a very map pool centric game too, much like we saw with Florida, Atlanta. This is going to be a game where it depends on what maps are on for Dallas, especially. Now, if we get into a couple of maps where you're going to need a lot of McCree, Ash, or anything long range, that's where it gets dicey. When you get into the map pools where you can play, the Doomfist and things like that, like they were doing, or mitigate it with Hanzo, or some of the other stuff that they were doing, you could even run a Hanzo Tracer. They could do that decently enough with the guys they got. I think that Dallas is going to be fine. But if you get into something where you're needing a lot of McCree, you're needing a lot of Ash, or even a Widow, I lean towards Washington in that. I really wish they would have the map pools up there this year, or not the map pool, but the map specifics on the schedule. They used to do that. I don't know why they didn't do it this year, and it's kind of unfortunate because there is a big varying map pool this year. It's not like years past where they have like a select couple. There seems to be a lot more maps in there. But anyway, outside of the map pool thing, this is a hard call because I'm standing Dallas this year, and I've been the Dallas apologist since week one, or before week one, I should say, and kind of downgrading and downplaying Washington here. But I am in this matchup today. Today, I am going Washington 3-2 with the caveat of I will not be surprised if Dallas wins this match either. I don't think Dallas is going to smoke them, and I don't think Washington's going to do the same. I think there are some problems that could occur for Dallas, map-wise. I could change my tune if I see the maps later on, and it's something where I feel Dallas is more comfortable and think they can do a lot more things on. But right now, I'm going to lean towards Washington in a squeaker, in a 5-map banger. I'm going with Washington. You heard it, guys. All of you Washington fans out there, they're giving me crap. Pick your team. First match. Technically, yeah, was it their first? Yeah, it is their first match. So that's my feelings on that match. Washington 3-2, close one. All right, final match we're going to discuss of the weekend in length. This one's a big one in the East. I really want to get up at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday to watch this. I am not going to get up at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday to watch this, but I'm actually for once going to do the spoilers on this because I want to watch this match entirely. It's Chengdu and Philadelphia. Both of them had a fantastic week last week. We saw a lot of great things out of both teams. Chengdu absolutely slapped Shanghai, who looked lost at this point. But Chengdu is a different team. And a lot of people are saying it. And, I'm going to cue in on Avast who said all his team needed was a real main tank, and they got a real main tank. And you're seeing these guys come out of the woodwork, guys like Elsa leave and things like that. When you're running normal comps and you have a very, very competent, if not fantastic, main tank, and he played phenomenal all weekend long, Gaga. Things magically fall into place. It's weird when you're not running fucking wacky ball comps and trying to train a guy who's a ball specialist to play Winston and Reinhardt. You look a lot better. And I'm not knocking Ameng. The Yoda Chad is, that's the thing. He was great. But you know what? Right now, that's in the past. And I think we thought we were going to see a lot of Faraway 1987. We saw Monk a lot. He looked good too. They were fantastic this weekend. And conversely, so was Philly. Philly was better than I thought. Now, I watched the matches. I watched some of the Philly Seoul match again because sometimes I feel like I rail on Seoul a little too much, but it was warranted in this one. But Philly came out and they proved that they're there. Like I said, they're going to be fine. They came out and proved a point. They are potentially the best team in the East, with Shanghai doing whatever they did on the weekend, and so did Chengdu. They're my 3 of my top 4. I have Seoul up there, but I almost should put on Seoul. They're my number 3 team in APAC when the playoffs come around. During the regular season matches, they're like 4th or 5th. They're somewhere in that. I don't know what's going to happen. They're like slightly above the Zhaos and the Valiant. But this matchup is going to be fantastic. A lot of big factors in this. The tank lines, obviously, when you have Mono and Hotba going up against Gaga and Elsa, I kind of lean towards Mono Hotba, but I don't know. I could get my mind changed on that, but somewhere around Friday night or Saturday night, because I think Chengdu looks really good. DPS-wise, I think they're close, but the one thing that Philly has, and we saw it on the weekend in week 1, is Rascal. Rascal's just a beast, and he's hard to stop, and Carpe, when Carpe's allowed to do his thing, and he's comfortable, that guy is just unfrickin' believable, and he was insane. Jinmu and Leave were fantastic. Even Jimmy looked good. Chengdu, but I gotta lean on Philadelphia's DPS line right now, mostly for the Rascal factor. I just think that is just bigger than life itself right now for them. And obviously, Alarm and Toby, Alarm and me playing Lucio would be better, look better even just because of Alarm. I'm terrible with Lucio, but that's beside the point. But yeah, what I'm getting at is they're far and away the biggest advantage Philadelphia has right now against Chengdu is the support line, and I just think this is going to be a factor in why I am picking Philadelphia. I'm staying on a Philadelphia train. I'm not getting off the Chengdu train. I'm still a large supporter of what Chengdu's doing. They're the team I'm rooting for over in the East. The deciding factor was the support line, mostly Alarm, and Toby is great too. Toby's game sense, we saw some of it on the weekend. He's undeservedly gets bashed by people, even by his own team in the last 2 years. They brought in all kinds of, they brought in Slime, they bring in other guys. I think this match is another 3-2. The worst I think it would be a 3-1 in favor of Philadelphia. I'm taking Philly in this. 3-1 in favor of Philly. In the very close decider map goes to Philadelphia. I just feel that they just have a little bit too much right now. I want to see a little bit more out of Chengdu. Yes, they destroyed Shanghai, but I have questions about Shanghai. But I'm taking Philly 3-2. So those are my 3 highlighted matches of the week. Now, it is time to do the rundown. All right, guys, you ready? This is the rundown. This is where I go down the whole schedule, pick all of the games in rapid fire succession. I call it the rundown for who knows why. I'm running down the picks. I don't know. I really like that movie with The Rock in it. We're just going with the rundown. That's what came up first. How about that? Okay, so here we go with a rundown. All right. Week 2, Overwatch League, Melee preliminaries. Here we go. Friday, April 23rd, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. To kick off the weekend, we have the Paris Eternal taking on the Vancouver Titans. Taking the Titans in this one 3-1. They look good. They impress me. I do not buy Paris yet. Next match, we have Gladiators taking on the London Spitfire. I think the Gladiators are going to get their start that they needed in this one. They're going to win 3-1 against the London Spitfire. Over to the East, Saturday, April 24th at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Chengdu takes on New York. I like Chengdu on this one 3-1. Next up, we have from the East, we have Philadelphia taking on the Hangzhou Spark. I like the Philadelphia Fusion in this one 3-0. Then we move back to the West on Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Houston Outlaws off their big weekend taking on the Paris Eternal. I like them in this one 3-0. Next up, Boston taking on the Gladiators. We talked about this one already today. I like Los Angeles in this one 3-1. Next up, another big match we talked about. Washington taking on Dallas. I like Washington 3-2. Back to the East on Sunday, 5 a.m. I have the New York Excelsior defeating the Hangzhou Spark 3-1. Followed by, we just talked about it, Philadelphia taking on the Chengdu Hunters. I like Philadelphia 3-1 or 3-2, possibly 3-1 in a close one. Now we move back to the West for the Sunday schedule, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Houston Outlaws taking on London. I like Houston 3-0. Next up, we have Dallas taking on Boston. Big game for Dallas and Boston here. We're going to see what happens with both of these teams going down the road. But I think Dallas in the end is too much for Boston. 3-1 in a close one. Dallas Fuel. And the final game of the weekend, Washington-Vancouver. I like Washington 3-0. In this one over Vancouver, I just think they're too much. That's going to do it for the rundown for week 2, guys. So there you have it. Those are all my picks, all of my key matchups. I think it's going to be a great weekend, guys. I am looking forward to watching these matches. Everything has an air of importance a little bit more than normal with the limited schedule, and I like it a lot. That is going to do it for this episode, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me. All of you guys that have been supporting me, thank you very much. I greatly, greatly appreciate all of your support. All you guys that are new, thanks for stopping by. Thanks for checking me out. If you could hit a like, that would be fantastic. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe and hit the alert bell and all that YouTube stuff. That would be fantastic. Now, next week, going to have my preview up a little bit earlier because the matches do start on Thursday, guys, in case you didn't know. With the tournament, the prelims on the tournaments are going to be on the Sunday of the final week of matches. So look for that a little bit earlier than normal. One day, I'll have it up Wednesday night, Thursday morning, and then I'm going to try, if I have time and my schedule allows it, I'm going to try and do a quick recap of the regular season games and give you a little bit of my opinion on the tournament, prelim, brackets, and who I think is going to come out of them. That's going to do it, guys. This is Misfit. I'm out. Everybody have a good rest of your day. Stay safe, and I will talk to you on the next one.